Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I wanted to talk to you about relationships and support, toxic support. So let's jump in. I wanted to speak on relationships and support and toxic support and building your support system because a lot of you are not toxic, but have been either in toxic situations or have been in generational toxicity, grew up in a toxic family. A lot of things have either been instilled in you or been pushed inside you, been conditioned upon you or in you over time, decades. The harsh truth of conditioning is it does have an effect over time. You can be a good individual, but if you are either around certain individuals for a long period of time or you choose to. Now, when it comes to generational conditioning, that's what a generational curse would be. It would be involving family and relatives and people connected to the family and relatives that have conditioned you. And that's not necessarily your fault. It's your fault if you choose to walk in that crooked path, and it will steal all your blessings. And it may build an illusion of getting ahead or taking the shortcut. But in the end, you will be empty and you will have nothing. And if you do have something stored up, it will be taken overnight and you will never get to use it. So it'll be a false security. And when it comes to individuals that you choose to put in your circle as your support system to advise you, that's your consent. So generational support, people connected to the generational support that you grew up in under conditioning, is only your fault if you choose to continue down that wayward path, the path that you know is wrong. And you got to look at your innate self. And what does your innate self tell you? Your inner self, the true you. Sometimes you got to dig deep to hear your innate self or your inside voice and to know what is right and what is wrong. A lot of times we know what's right and what's wrong, and we choose to deny doing it because of our flesh, our lusts, in our fallen state here in this earth. But when you put individuals around you in the spirit, it's showing that you consent to this, that you choose to do this. And so the repercussions come directly to you. Generationally, the same thing will happen. And that's why they call it generational cursing. That's because we all have free will. We all are born with free will in this society, in the world we live in. Like I said, even if you're imprisoned, you have free will because it's all about decision making in the space that you're in. And a lot of times it starts in this space and this space, your heart space and your mind and your spirit. And that's where you get judged from, really. That's where you get either positive reaping or negative reaping. What happens a lot of times is you could be a good individual, but if you get a toxic support system, people around you, your friends that you choose to be around, your family, and you start to let them whisper in your ear, you let them help guide you, or you take confidence in what they have to say. If they're toxic, they're going to ruin your life. And it could sound good, but it's not going to be your true heart's desire. And because you're leaving your true heart's desire up to somebody else and they're toxic, then the price is for you to pay for it. And a lot of times when you come out of narcissistic families or relationships, you have toxic people around you and you have to get them away. And you have to sift through them. And anybody toxic or anybody that doesn't align with your innate self, the true you. Meaning you have to find out through processing your own emotions by yourself, who you are and where you want to go, what you want to become, and where you see yourself. And if you don't do these things in independence, then you won't be living your true desires. And these are not evil desires. These are love and wholesome desires, the true you, without all of the idiosyncrasies of this world involved. Because the true you isn't involved in the world that we live in physically. That's the ego, which is your mind-blown emotions, and they can be corrupted. But the true you is your truest heart's desires, and they are pretty incorruptible. But they cannot control your mind, will, and emotions without the help of the Almighty. And that's just how it works. And that's why it's imperative that you know the Lord and you fill your vessel with goodness, reading the Word, because that's where you get power over your mind, will, and emotions to make those heartfelt decisions in a correct fashion so that you can succeed and not sabotage yourself. You can sabotage yourself. A lot of people out there, they have a lot of control issues. And so if you have control issues, that's not good. It's better to walk in truth, because if you walk in truth, you're protected. But if you walk in a partial truth, that's where you have problems. But you can't control everything. You can't control outcomes in most cases. But you can have vision and you can march toward that vision. But if you have truth, you can succeed and the Lord will show you the way. So if you have toxic people whispering in your ear, bad advice, you could lose love partner connection, you could lose financial gain, and you got to be able to express your feelings and emotions in a vulnerable state to the person that you care about. A lot of times you got to put everything on the table and it'll be easier. You may have some kind of perception on how somebody will take things, and it's not the case at all. But out of fear of not being vulnerable, you miss out on all blessings, because if you don't express your feelings and emotions in a vulnerable state to somebody that needs to hear it, loved ones and people that you love. I'm not saying everybody, because you can't be vulnerable with everybody. And if they're already toxic and you know they're toxic, then you can't trust them either, because you know they're going to be manipulators. But if you have truth in your heart and you feel like somebody is a balanced individual, then if you have feelings that need to be expressed, then you need to let them know, because you may have perceptions of what they may think or how they may react or respond. I like to say respond. And that may not be the case. It could be all in your head. And if you don't face those fears, you may miss out on manifesting your blessings. And that's why it talks in the Word about having faith, because faith moves mountains, and they may only be fictitious mountains. It could be a huge mountain in your mind. It could be any kind of burden that you may be facing. And you may have perceptions of people and how they would respond to a situation. So you refuse to discuss your emotions with them, your true heart's emotions, and just figure they just know what you're thinking and they're going to respond the way you think they will. But that's generally not the case. Generally, they can handle more than you think. And sometimes people think finances can get in the way. But if your heart is right and you are truthful and vulnerable with individuals, a lot of times they'd rather eat a peanut butter sandwich if they had to than have all the riches in the world. Be not blessed, because money doesn't bring happiness without love and truth and vulnerability. And a lot of times people can mislead you. And if you don't get them out of your life, they will continue to mislead you. And so you'll be getting toxic advice. So you could get out of a toxic relationship, but still have toxic advisors, toxic friendships, and toxic ways. A lot of times, like I said, you got to leave your family. When you wake up to narcissism, leave everybody around you for you to manifest what your truest heart's desires are. But a lot of people cannot get to the point where they have the guts to do that. And if you don't express your feelings a lot of times, you will cause your own hangups, your own downfall. And to build an illusion around what you think are people's perceptions, to make them believe something that is not true, to avoid telling the truth, to try to sidetrack, that's manipulation. And that's from the enemy. So you never want to mislead anybody. And if you care about somebody, you want to tell them your truest heart in a vulnerable state. And if that person truly cares, then they will give you a just response. And people are more merciful than you think. But we're talking about non-toxic people. So just be careful, because you need truth. To have a good relationship, you need truth. And truth equals vulnerability. And vulnerability equals apologies and vulnerability equals forgiving, and vulnerability equals love. So true love would be truth, vulnerability, apologizing, having the ability to apologize for your wrongs and forgiving them for their wrongs. And vulnerability shows you have the ability to get injured here. So you are opening up, and that shows somebody that you're making them special. When you can show your vulnerability to an individual you care about, you feel like you can trust. When you give them your vulnerable self, when you are able to tell them anything or things about you, they know this is coming from a special place. And if they are a good, truthful person themselves and somebody who loves you, then they will always respect and respond good to that. And a lot of people are afraid to do that because they either have to have complete control and power over everything or manipulate people based on what their false perceptions are of that individual. And it's usually farthest from the truth. And so that's why they say in the world that they end up playing themselves. People that have all this power and control and manipulators, deceivers, and listening to toxic individuals and their perceptions of you or of an individual and believing those perceptions over your innate self, your true beliefs, they play themselves each and every time. So that's why it talks in the word about people that are evil walk in continual folly. They're either froward and pompous. Those are typically people who stand behind finances and money, and that's their strong tower, instead of putting their faith in the Almighty Creator as their strong tower. And that never works because, like I said, that collapses all in one sitting, or they save it all up, and then somebody comes through and steals it all out from under them in one day. So that's a false tower of safety. And in the other case, their strong tower could be power, control, and manipulating others based on their perceptions to control situations and have a poker face with no vulnerability. When you act and operate like that, it draws you further and further away from truth, and you become what's called as a manipulator. And jealousy and greed, or feeling that you need to be perfect, leads you to these places. You will never be perfect, and individuals that care about you don't expect you to be perfect, nor do they want that type of perfection. And they do not and refuse a yoke of power and control over them. You kill love with power and control, with being critical and having perceptions of people that are false, without expressing your emotions and feelings and getting their response. I think the problem in this world is they don't give it a chance, and they're afraid to be vulnerable, and they believe it doesn't work because they're trying to be vulnerable with toxic individuals. You have to vet people. You have to look at their fruits and see if you believe that they can be trusted or not. And if you don't think they can be trusted, they shouldn't be in your life. And if you're always supporting people or being supported by people and being coddled or coddling somebody else, they're never going to learn anything about being independent. And that's a crutch that will keep you codependent. That'll keep you weak. That'll make a person weak. It's like giving a child the ability to reach the cookie jar whenever they want, and it's always going to be full. Well, the child's going to always eat the cookies until they're all gone. Don't you think that makes them weak? Of course it does. We all know that. You can't eat all the cookies all the time and expect to be a strong individual and be able to weather a storm. You don't want to be coddled. And that's why addictions are bad, because addictions, they bring you relief from whatever this outside stuff that you need to deal with, or inside, really. Really, it's all in here and in here. The stuff that you refuse to deal with, you distract yourself with addictions. So it coddles you as well. It's a crutch. It's a protection as a distraction from you dealing with what you truly need to deal with. But because you continue to work off the addiction, you never get anywhere because you never deal with the things you need to deal with. Because everything in life is a lesson to be learned. And if you don't deal with the lessons the Almighty is put in front of you to deal with, how will you learn from them if you always are distracting yourself? You want toxicity out of all of your personal life, because you can even get cursed by just the covenants, the agreements that you are in as friendships with individuals that are toxic. You have to pay for some of their reaping, because they are connected to you. It's like a big web. And anybody in your personal life that is toxic and you decide to be in a friendship with, a partnership with, a covenant with, family included, once you get of age, once you pass 18, because now it's free will and it's your birthright. If you don't get them people out of your life, you can still have toxic family in your life, but you keep them at a distance to where you only see them on certain occasions. If they're toxic family, you build great boundaries around them and you firm them up and you live by them so that they get used to knowing that they cannot cross this wall, that they can stay on this side of the wall. And I can't let you any further, because if I let you any further, you will destroy my castle. And my castle is where the king and the queen live, your love partner, your counterpart, and all of your assets. So you can't have a castle without walls. That's what it says in the word. If you don't protect the castle, that's your assets, that's your finances, and that's where your love and your peace and your security truly comes from. And if you don't have peace here, then you won't be able to reach the Almighty. If you don't have peace in your house, you also want to have the environment of peace. And peace and love is what manifests and gives you faith and hope and makes life worth living. Sometimes people are too cautious and they don't get to live. And if you're a person that has to have power and control over everything, but you're getting all your answers from a toxic support system, friends and relatives around you, and you're letting them make all your decisions, you know what you're doing is you're handing them your birthright and you're letting them decide the outcomes. And toxic people only care about themselves. And if you always have to have a full cup before you're going to give to someone, that's not good. That's only caring about yourself and thinking about yourself and only around individuals for your own outcomes. Not showing individuals that love and care for you are special and they mean anything to you. If you always have to get yours first, you are showing them on a daily basis you don't give a damn about them. And so when you walk away from a toxic relationship or toxic generational curse constructs in your family, you have to reboot your computer, break from that wayward thinking. You have to go against the norm. A lot of people you will have to drop, and a lot of people won't like that. A lot of people will give you pushback, and they will try to convince you that you're making the wrong decision. But if you follow your innate inside voice, your intuition, your heart self, if you truly want your heart's desires, you have to take a hold of your own birthright and learn to walk in it, or else you will be toxic just like the rest, and you will lose out on your blessings, financial gains, and love, support, safety, security, commitment, connection. And that's where life comes from. It springs from all of that. Anywhere that you're fake, change it. And if you put out wrong perceptions that are not true, correct them. That's repentance. Letting people know the truth, letting people in. I think that's what's so bad about the narcissist. They have this wall around them, and then they build toxic enablers around them. So the outside is buffered before that anybody could even get any closer to them. They have to deal with all this toxicity, and toxicity is built around them to enable them and to make them feel normal. And all of their support system is toxic, unbeknownst to them, or maybe they know. And then if you get past that wall, you will never get past the wall of their heart, because that will be so built up. They're basically compartmentalizing themselves. So they're basically in here and in here, completely and utterly alone. It's like being in a castle all by yourself that's completely fortified. And you may have food, and you may have lighting and a bed to sleep on, but you have nobody to ever talk to. And that's what it looks like when you're not vulnerable. You're in a castle all by yourself with nobody forever. It's called compartmentalism. And that's what you see more and more in this world today. Single people that may be successful, but they never in a relationship, or they never let people get close to them. And they have this huge home, a mansion with nobody in it. And that's how they live. So that's just a little bit about relationships and dealing with coming out from toxicity. It's kind of like when the Israelites left Egypt. They didn't want to leave Egypt because Egypt fed them, clothed them, and that's all they knew when they were enslaved in Egypt. So when God had Moses lead them out of Egypt, they complained and complained. When God destroyed Egypt to get them out of there, he destroyed their military. He had the Israelites leave Egypt with all their jewels, all their gold. They were Egypt's workforce. God put away all of Egypt's firstborn, all of their crop, and all of their oxen. Everything was destroyed. And they did all that. And then when Moses led them out to the desert and the wilderness, they still didn't have faith. They still complained. But God fed them for 40 years with manna from heaven on a daily basis. And they still lacked faith. When God asked them to cross the Jordan, they complained. And they sent 12 spies, and only 2 came back saying they can do it. And one was Joshua. And he was the one that 40 years later led the march. And they destroyed everything in their pathway. And because Moses disobeyed, he was not allowed to pass the Jordan. And they were there for 40 years in the desert before they crossed the Jordan because God knew that group of people did not have faith in him. So he said, well, okay, I'll take care of you. I'll feed you, clothe you, and take care of you. But when I'm going to have you sitting out in the desert for 40 years, because 40 years is a generation, and I'm going to let you all die out here of old age because you didn't have faith that I could send you across that Jordan River and have you conquer those giants in the promised land and subdue it for yourself. So he let them stay out there for 40 years, which is 40 years is change. 40 years is change, and 40 years is a generation. Meaning, he let them stay out there till they all died off, and he let their children decide, do you want to cross the Jordan? And you know what their children said? They said, man, we've been out here for 40 years. God led our family, our parents out of Egypt, and God provided for us 40 years in this desert. And our parents didn't believe, but there's no way. Their children were like, there's no way I'm sitting in the desert for 40 years. I'm crossing that Jordan, and I'm going to have faith to believe. I'm going to put my faith in the Almighty and know that we are going to defeat those giants and subdue that promised land for ourselves. And the day Moses died, a servant of Moses came to Joshua and said to get the tribes ready. They left in 3 days. After 40 years, because God said Moses wasn't going to be able to cross the Jordan for his defiance to God in a certain situation. 3 days after Moses died, get them ready, y'all. We're crossing the Jordan. And they wreaked havoc upon them, city upon city, stronghold upon stronghold. And now that stronghold is here and here. It's not a physicality thing where God's having you take over physical land, but he's having you take over spiritual land. That's like the new law. That was the old law. This is the new law. The old law was in its physicality, and the new law is in its spirituality. Because Christ came and fulfilled the law, y'all. That's why the new law takes precedence over the old law. And he didn't come to change the law, but to complete it. And they were truly blessed once they crossed the Jordan. They destroyed so many strongholds and so quickly that Joshua asked God to stop the sunlight because advancement was taking place so speedily that we could not stop. And God stopped the sun for 24 more hours so they could continue that march forward. And if you have faith, and if you're operating under the statutes of God, he'll stop the sun for you. And when you're walking with the Lord, your advancement with him in some cases happens speedily and mightily in your life. What may look like 10 years of movement could happen in a year. What you think will take 5 years may take 30 days. But that's why God has to get all the glory, because he wants you to know that he did it through you and in you by your faith in him. Walking in truth, knowing him, and having faith in this world is the same as it's your spiritual finances. It's your spiritual money. Like money is here on the earth with God. It's like, but you're not buying it. It's just, it's more of He gifts you. But I'm saying things get done through faith. Faith is vulnerability. Thank you for watching. Give me a like, subscription, and thumbs up. Love you all till next time. Sold you up. Peace, we out.